Hey, Chad Carter here with ChadCarter.net, and this is the video I promised where I talk about my favorite blockchain. So let's get into it. Alright, so here it is, the very first blockchain. My favorite blockchain is Bitcoin. Not really, it's not really my favorite blockchain. It's my favorite crypto asset, cryptocurrency, whatever you want to call it at the moment. Kind of depends on who you're talking to. I kind of like crypto asset myself. But yeah, so let me talk about Bitcoin real quick, and then I'll get into my favorite after this. So Bitcoin was my favorite. It was the only one I really knew. It came out about 2009 by an anonymous programmer, and it was a response to the financial crisis that we had in 2008. And so a lot of people use it as a hedge against inflation. So some people will put their money into gold, some people into Bitcoin, some people in other precious metals. Others do it across several different assets. And yeah, so Bitcoin, I found out about it I heard about it early on, right? But ignored it, really didn't think much about it. Thought, I thought from a geeky perspective, it'd be kind of cool to run do a mine, like a mining rig. But then I thought, well, no, I'd just rather play games. I'll use my video cards to play games, right? So that was kind of what I was doing back in the early days of that. But then around 2016 or so, I was told by a guy I listened to for some financial advice. He said, you really should think about getting some Bitcoin, and it was $600. I thought, yeah, maybe I'll grab a Bitcoin. And I said, I'll do it when I come back, because I was out of town that weekend. When I get back in town Monday, I'll do that. I'll get the account set up, and I'll get a wallet set up and all that stuff, and I'll get a Bitcoin. When I came back on Monday, it went from $600 to $1,200. And I thought, man, I missed it. I should have went ahead and bought some, right? That'd been fine. Yeah, I'd only gotten 50% of what I would have got over the weekend. But of course, let's see, by the time I got into it, it was right around the $10,000 mark. And so I got like a third of a Bitcoin at that point. And of course, since then, it went to like 20,000 and then dropped back down to 10 and below, and 6 or whatever. And most recently, it's jumped up to like 64,000 this year. Now it's down to like 32, 33. It's just kind of it's been fluctuating there in the 30s for the last few weeks, not doing a whole lot of anything. But yeah, so when I first found out about it, I thought it was interesting, and I thought, well, I'll put a little bit in there just in case it blows up and goes, great. And if I lose it all, well, it's just a little bit. It's not the end of the world, right? So that was kind of my thought process. But I really didn't look at it from a technology standpoint. I wasn't planning on, dusting off my C++ skills and trying to become a blockchain developer for Bitcoin. That wasn't at all in my thought process whatsoever. So yeah, that's kind of where it was. It was just more of financial investment type thing and speculative thing, and see what happened. So from a blockchain perspective, I'm very, very grateful that it exists. I'm glad that it is created, and I'm really bullish, if you will, on Bitcoin itself. But that being said, that's not my favorite blockchain. So sometime in 2017 or so, I don't remember exactly when, but I found out about Ethereum, right? So Ethereum and this whole notion of smart contracts, and that you can actually build applications on top of this blockchain, and it was going to be this new way of doing stuff, and this whole trustless system. And I thought, well, that's kind of neat, being able to like refinance a home or whatever, and have or even just buy a home and have the title transferred from one person to the other on a blockchain, and it's verified, and there's not all this craziness you have to go through title companies and stuff. It's like, well, that's kind of neat. I like that. But of course, around that same time, I was deep into the HoloLens world, right? So I could only handle one immersive technology at a time, and the HoloLens is where I was spending all my time, 2016, 2017, 2018. And so while I knew about Ethereum, I really never dug into it a whole lot. I knew about the Solidity programming language, but again, just really didn't. I thought it was cool, but I figured, listen to me. I figured the HoloLens had a better chance of grabbing hold and becoming mainstream before Ethereum or any blockchain technology. So yeah, I kind of probably didn't make the right call on that one. All right, so let's talk about my favorite blockchain. The reason why you're here, and there's a bunch of different blockchains, and some of them have different purposes. Some are really cool, but my favorite is actually Cardano. And I found out about Cardano March of this year. So Cardano's been around since 2016, 2017. I would think maybe 2017 officially. But people that were in the know that actually paid attention to this stuff definitely knew about it at that point. But I did not. I never even heard of it. And so what I ended up doing was I found out, I forget exactly how, I think it's a YouTube video, more likely than not. It's like some suggested video, and all of a sudden I see this guy, Charles Hoskinson, and I was like, okay. I'm listening to him, like, man, this guy's making a whole lot of sense. I'm really liking what he's saying. And I start digging in and seeing Cardano, and I found out there's a whole other thing called Polkadot, and there's Solana, and there's all these other things that are out there that are up and coming and trying to kind of take over Ethereum, if you will, or at least take away some of the market share, not necessarily replace Ethereum all the way around. So again, different blockchains are trying to focus on different things. And I thought, okay, well that's interesting. So I started looking around, but really I was just pulled in to Cardano in particular. Now the interesting thing is Cardano is all built on Haskell. It's a functional programming language, and I've done some functional programming in the past, but not tons. It's been more experimental stuff, right? So my day job and even all the stuff I've done on the side, it's really all been with imperative programming. So whether it's C# or C++, when I was forced to, JavaScript, TypeScript, even some Java if I had to. The point is, imperial languages, object-oriented type of designs for the most part. I fool with some Lisp. I've done different things with some functional programming languages. I've definitely, probably the most one was F# more than anything else, just because I was so familiar with the .NET framework, and so it was just trying to understand syntax and think about things in a functional way. But I just never really was all into it. I preferred doing things in C# over F#, and so I just never really went down that path too terribly much. But Cardano, it's built using Haskell. It's like that seemed odd to me. But then I start understanding why that was the case. And so Cardano in general, the way that blockchain has been built versus all the others, from what I can see, is it was built with white papers first. So definitely from people that are more math-minded, right, and in the academic world. So me personally, academia, I'm fine if people want to go get an education, get a college degree. I have a college degree, but it depends on what field you're in, or whether I personally think it's important or not. Since I'm in, the computer science field, if you will, and vast majority of jobs that you need to, get in my field, somebody might say you need to have a bachelor's degree or whatever, but you'll do better off spending 4 years at some job making some money and spending time outside that job learning how to program yourself than you will, in my opinion, at a 4-year school. Now maybe some curriculums are better than others, but things just move so quickly that you're going to be behind by the time you're out of school. So like for me in my field, I don't necessarily see a big pool for the university education, and I just think it's way too expensive for what people are doing. I mean, I just feel bad for folks who are going to become elementary education. They're going to actually teach elementary school, and they're getting in debt for $60,000, $100,000, $200,000, right? And it's just, there's a big disconnect there. So me personally, I have an issue with the world of academia, but Haskell is definitely born in that world of academia, and so it makes sense. I understand why they used Haskell, and I've heard Charles Hoskinson, kind of the creator, if you will, of the Cardano blockchain, explain it multiple times as far as things are less likely to get lost in translation, right? So you have these white papers, very, very math heavy, because obviously this stuff is around cryptography and lots of math involved in that. And so you take this white paper and you hand it to any programmer, let's say even myself, who isn't super math minded, didn't take tons of high-end math in college and stuff, like I think trigonometry I wasn't that. Trigonometry was like high school and pre-calc in high school. I just did algebra 2 up in college, so didn't do tons of math, and therefore if somebody hand me a white paper with all these calculus functions on there, I'd be like, okay, I need to understand, first of all I need to translate what that formula actually means, and then I'm going to turn around and try to turn that into C# code or whatever. And a lot of things get lost in translation there, versus Haskell is very much functional, and you can more easily translate that white paper and the math formulas into specific functions, outputs of Haskell, and there's no side effects, and that's kind of the whole thing about functional programming in general. And so it makes a lot of sense. So back in March, when I found out about Cardano, I was like, you know what? How do you mine Cardano? How do you mine ADA, right? So I've heard about mining Bitcoin, so I want to go mine some ADA. How do I mine some ADA? And then I found out, well, you can't mine ADA because ADA is the currency, if you will, the token that runs on the Cardano blockchain. So Bitcoin has the Bitcoin blockchain, and then it's the Bitcoin token or the Bitcoin currency that runs on the Bitcoin blockchain. Ethereum is the blockchain, Ethereum, and then you have ETH or Ether, but ETH is the symbol, but Ether is what actually is the currency of Ethereum. With Cardano is a blockchain, and ADA is the currency or the token that you use on Cardano. And you don't mine ADA, you stake it. And there's a whole notion of proof of work versus proof of stake. And proof of work, I'm not getting into all that right now, but proof of work is all on Bitcoin and how that worked. And then Ethereum's also proof of work currently. They're actually in the middle of doing Ethereum 2.0, and they're moving things over to proof of stake. But Cardano has been proof of stake from the get-go. And with all these white papers, there's over 100 white papers that's been peer-reviewed and everything else through this, through the academia, basically. So they have this whole process of peer-reviewing these papers, making sure the math's correct, and that, these theories are putting out, they can be, things are proved or disproved, and it's a whole rigorous process that I assumed existed out there for folks that cared about that stuff. I really didn't, so I never, bothered looking at it. But it's definitely, it's intriguing to see that process. And, I kind of joked with folks in the past, is like, software I write, I'm not writing software to keep a plane in the air. I'm not writing software to, send a space shuttle up in space, right? You don't want to make mistakes, and I do my best not to have mistakes. I do test around things, but even with that, it's different programming for line of business apps or whatever. It's obviously games. It's different programming that than programming something where somebody's life depends on it or not, right? Or something where there can be massive financial loss of billions or even trillions of dollars. Okay, and obviously, if the blockchain technology is going to take off and different currencies and this whole smart application, smart contract application, stuff like that is going to take off, then a lot of stuff is on the line here. So when you have this method of creating software like most of us do, and from what I can tell, that's how Ethereum is created, there's a lot of room of, leaves a lot of room of improvement. Things can break, things do break, it seems, and all of a sudden you can just be left holding the bag, if you will, when things aren't done correctly. So Haskell is very rigid, if you will, in how you have to do things. Well, I say that it's actually a bunch of different, just like everything in technology. There's 20 different things 20 different ways to do the exact same thing, and so that exists in Haskell. But there's no side effects in Haskell. So again, we're going from step 1 to step 2. You know exactly what the output you're getting, and there's no ambiguity around that. But either way, proof of stake, again, I'm not getting the difference between proof of work and proof of stake, just they're two different things. Proof of work definitely uses a whole lot more electricity, a whole lot more energy, because it's actually doing computations to figure out who mints the block. So all these different nodes on the network are trying to determine who's going to mint the block. And the proof of stake is all about people putting skin in the game, if you will, and actually buying those tokens and staking those, not spending them, not doing anything. They're staking them to secure the network. Okay. And so there's a bunch of white papers that's been written in the Cardano by IOG, which is Input Output Group, was Input Output Hong Kong, and Cardano ecosystem in general. They have written these white papers to prove that yes, proof of stake does work. So there's all kinds of other blockchains that use proof of stake, but they just kind of went about it like we're pretty sure it works, and they just wrote code to do that, and hoping that over time it will be proven that yeah, it works, because nobody's been able to hack it yet. Versus Cardano's kind of went down this path of slower, but let's prove it on paper first, kind of measure twice, cut once type deal. So that's kind of where it exists. So back in March, I found out about it. I thought, okay, well, I want to mine these ADA. Oh, okay, you not mine ADA, you stake ADA. Okay, well, what does that do? Well, you create staking pools. So you become a stake pool operator, and you basically run, a Linux machine or two, and you have this program that's actually written in Haskell that runs on that, and it connects to other nodes, and somebody through a luck of the draw actually mints the blocks. So all the transactions that happen on that block, they all happen, and now that block is on, all those transactions are on the blockchain. That's been done, and somebody on the network, one of these stake pool operators, have minted that block. Okay, well, that's kind of cool. And so I became a stake pool operator back in March. Now it's been running. I haven't promoted or anything, so I'm like the only person delegated to that pool. But I want to make sure like it works, and I know what I'm doing. And so far it's been fine. I've enjoyed doing it. I've done a couple different updates they have. Cardano is about ready to go through what they're calling the Alonzo hard fork. So they have a bunch of different phases to this, and now they're introducing smart contracts, and that's been on the agenda for a while. A lot of people that's been in this space for a while are jaded against Cardano because it's like, they've been talking about smart contracts forever and they're never going to come, but I was able to be a part of what they call the Plutus Pioneer Program. Called it Plutus because they added a scripting language, basically written in Haskell with some additional syntax sugar, a few other things, some more scripting stuff around there. Created a language called Plutus, and that's what smart contracts are written in. So Cardano was written with a Haskell programming language, and then they wrote Plutus, that is basically Haskell with some additional restrictions, if you will, and some templating pieces to that. And that's where smart contract developers can come and write their code using Plutus. Now there's some other things, there's Glow, there's Marlowe, and there's some other languages that can kind of be used to do that, but they all pretty much will translate down to Plutus behind the scenes. So if you want to go down to the bare metal, then you write your stuff in Plutus. And so they ran this program called the Plutus Pioneer Program, and I was able to be a part of that, the very first one. They're in the middle of running their second one now. They ran about 10 weeks. And so I took this crash course in learning Haskell, diving deep into Haskell and learning Plutus, and kind of wrote a smart contract and stuff on little tests and things, and had a really good time doing that. So I've just kind of been, heads over heels, if you will, with this new technology called Cardano. There's this whole I guess just ecosystem is what you want to call it, within Cardano. You have the Cardano Foundation. They run this thing called the Catalyst Project. The Catalyst Project is actually funding available for developers. So if you actually want to write something on the Cardano blockchain, create your own smart contract, or do something else that somehow or another benefits the Cardano community in a way, then you can actually submit a proposal to the Catalyst Fund, and they have different funds. So right now they're in the middle of Fund 5, and I think registration is currently open for Fund 5, which means that you could register to vote for that. And in fact, what I'll do is I'll create another video talking about that. I'll do that tomorrow. At least I'll try to get it tomorrow. So definitely, if you're not subscribed, hit subscribe, hit that bell notification so you'll be notified if you're interested in this topic, and that way you'll be notified when I talk about this Catalyst proposal and the Fund 5 and the registration and that whole bit. But basically, Fund 5 is currently going on, and people are going to ultimately be voting on this proposal. I actually have a proposal in Fund 5, and I'll talk more about that when I do my next video. But yeah, I mean, this is my favorite blockchain, is Cardano. Like I said, I've been just dug in, jumped in with both feet, if you will, back in March. Stake pool operator, doing the Plutus thing, and I've just thoroughly enjoyed it. And I figured it's a little bit different. I really wasn't in this whole blockchain world before, and figured, you know what, let me at least talk about what I found, because there might be others that also haven't, and you might want to check some of this stuff out. So with that, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video.